It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so obviously it's going to be a very action-heavy film, and that's exactly what you're going to get. It's that globe-trotting, very global action. Of course, being ninjas, there's a lot of fighting through the film, be it close quarter kind of fist fighting, but most of the fighting is with weapons. And there's lots of ninja style weapons. There's shooting in this film. There's sword work. There's all kind of fighting and a lot of weapons used in the film. But the violence extends to it's large scale stuff. So this is where buildings are demolished and there's heaps of property damage, where there's car crashes and motorcycle crashes. There's a plane crash in the film. There's a tank. There's armed personnel. There's a whole city under siege. In fact, there's a quite threatening scene where the whole population of the planet could very well be wiped out. So of course, it's large scale, it's big, it's action heavy, it's preposterous, and it's completely absorbing and fun. It's also quite funny throughout the film. The violence is always kind of mixed in with a bit of light-hearted humour, just to dilute it, just to remind you that you're watching something which has comic book origins. It's not meant to upset you or frighten you or scare you or shock you. It's very comic book. There's a comic book villain. In fact, the villain is probably the scariest, or if not scary, then at least kind of most unpleasant to look at character in the film. It's the brain character, which is a little bit squeamish and icky to look at. While it's quite violent, it's a fairly bloodless film. So the only thing that you do see which involves, I guess, blood or serious harm is one character. Unfortunately, we don't particularly care about this person anyway, gets an arm cut off. It's not a particularly dramatic or unpleasant thing to watch. It sounds shocking, but it probably isn't quite as bad as it sounds. And there's a scene where characters are injected with this serum, and the camera goes into the bloodstream, so it follows through what's happening to the blood cells and how they're being morphed and changed as a result of this serum entering the bloodstream. You see DNA strands and the kind of the body happenings and workings as it evolves or morphs. So that's really the most it gets to in terms of blood or gore. One thing I did want to say about the violence is there is a plane crash scene, and there is jumping between aircraft. So if you do have a fear of plane crashes or a fear of falling or a fear of heights, then that scene could very well play on those discomforts for you. So yeah, it is. There's a lot of action-heavy violence through the film. In fact, the film was rated initially M in Australia, but it was later downgraded upon review. So that should give you an idea of just how much concern there was by the classification people surrounding the violence in the film. Personally, I didn't find it particularly awful to watch or difficult to watch. I still found it fairly family-friendly in terms that you know exactly what you get when you go into a film like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, particularly if you've grown up on the comic book series, then yeah, it's violent and over the top, but it's meant to be. Like all the karate or the martial arts stuff, they're not called Ninja Turtles for nothing, right? So sex and nudity, there isn't any actual sex or nudity during the film. There is, however, one scene where a rather attractive female ends up wearing a schoolgirl outfit. So you see a bare midriff and you see a lot of leg, and it is what it is. It's a little bit sort of sexy and provocative, and it's obviously meant for the dads in the audience. So but it's also funny. It's it's not offensive, but that really is it in terms of sex or nudity. Moving on to the drugs and alcohol, there is a little bit of a presence of alcohol in the film. I think champagne and spirits are both seen in the film, and drugs. While there's no illegal drugs in the film, yeah, these characters are injected with this serum. One character is actually shot with a serum dart. Then the characters who are injected with this serum undergo quite serious changes. They sort of turn into these animal creatures. It's very amusing. It's quite funny. It's meant to be, but that's the only drug-related content in the whole film. Likewise, swearing. The A word is used a couple of times, and I think there's son of a bitch and bloody is used. But really, I wouldn't say this film is particularly profane. There's a lot of name calling, and you know the turtles tend to joke a lot and make a lot of jokey banter and sort of jokey insults. So yeah, that does have a little bit of a playful presence through the film as well. But again, I didn't find it a particularly strong or upsetting or offensive theme in the film at all. So there is a more detailed description of the content in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the website. So check that out, particularly in terms of the violence, if you want a more specific understanding of what kind of violence is in the film. But before you go, please take a moment to subscribe.